Welcome to the Healthy Metal Hippie Podcast, where art and wellness collide. Well, hi and welcome back to the Healthy Metal Hippie. Today we are here with our friend Marlowe. Welcome and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be talking about this with you.
Yeah, we met because we actually work together, and then we got to talking and you were telling me all about your music and all the exciting things that you do. You're a London-based artist and you're getting out, you're doing lots of really cool showcases, lots of really cool shows that you're putting on. And do you want to just tell us what you've been up to lately to start with?
Of course. Well, I put out a project last August, and since then it's been a lot of gigging, a lot of promoting the album, either like gigs that are put around London that I perform at, or even showcases, as you mentioned. Like there was like the EQ showcase that I did last year in December. And yeah, so I've been working a lot on that, promoting that like mini album that's called Submissive.
Yes.
I got a single coming up for like a deluxe version of this project that I was talking about that's called Reloaded. The single coming up is called Psychopath. It's coming out April 1st, and I'm super excited.
Oh my God. Okay. I am super excited. I've been listening to your stuff on Spotify, and I am like, shit, this is quite a vibe. So you describe it as like alt pop, dark pop. I like all of those threads that come through it and how it comes out.
I think I felt as an artist, you've always have to pick parts of yourself that you're like choosing to highlight, right? And I think that's where I'm at the moment. I think electronic music and dark pop, it's something that's always resonated with me. But it wasn't necessarily a choice that I made to be a pop artist or like an electronic music artist. It just kind of happened because it was the kind of music that resonated the most with like the topics I was talking about and stuff. And the way that I did my last project was I just got to writing for 3 years. I was doing my undergrad then in music, and that was a great time to just focus on writing, producing, and a lot of it was really terrible, but these were like the highlights of that period, and they all seem to like fall within the genre. And I felt like even if you listen to the project now, it's still like they're similar, they're in the same playlist, but they're not the same, like they don't pull from the same inspirations, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's what ends up happening a lot. I feel like it's more like, this sounds very pretentious, but like the genre chooses me over me choosing the genre per se, you know what I mean? It's just what goes with the themes more.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, even just if I look at some of the titles of your songs, I like that they're just short and sweet. Well, maybe not sweet, but they're very powerful. Like, okay, so I'm just looking at your popular songs here, right? Invincible, Death, Give It Up, Cold-Hearted Bitch. I've been called that before.
Right.
Sweatbox, Let Me Down. Like, I love this. You see those titles and you're like, I need to hit play. And so you say like a lot of it comes from your experiences and
Yes.
throughout life.
Even when I'm writing about other stuff, there's a couple of songs in the album that are about like a story that happened to a friend or like something like that. And I always, in the process of writing it, I'm always thinking it's not about me. But when I look back on it, it's all about me. You know what I mean? It's all about what I resonate with, what I can't write about something I'm not able to understand. You know what I mean? To relate to. And ultimately, that's what I want people to be getting from these songs anyway. The whole like concept of the project is about, I call it the unraveling of a people pleaser. So it's all really about identity and like really allowing yourself to be who you really are, with all your faults, with all your bad decisions and your impulses, you know what I mean, and all that stuff. That
Mm.
it's you can say it, but it's not really easy to do, you know what I mean? Especially like in this society where we have to be focused on so many things all the time. We kind of just forget ourselves, and it's easier to just get with a schedule and kind of just stop exploring that identity. But yeah, in the project, the first song is called "Cold Hearted Bitch," which is this like persona, right? That I do put on when I'm in different situations, you know, romantically, friendship wise, all this
Mm.
stuff where I come across as a bit cold, but I'm just overwhelmed. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, I
and
know. Wait, not that you've ever been that way to me, but I get that where
you
you
can relate to
you
it.
like
Yeah.
you kind of have to put up a little wall around you, and you come
Yeah.
across that way, especially when you're so like light and you're so like yay. But when you get into that overwhelmed state, put the barriers up.
And we're quite similar in that way, in that we're like very on. I feel like I've always gotten that vibe from you where you're like very honest and vulnerable and like very open, I guess.
Mm.
And I think like for people, I like to think of myself that way. For people like us, it does become a bit harder to be that all the time. You know what I mean? You do want to be open and you do want to be sensible and like empathetic, but there is a limit to your abilities, and then sometimes that will come at times where you can't really control it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. You might have those things that come up that are too reminiscent of perhaps a past dangerous space in your life. That's when you can't do it. And a lot of it comes down to like your instinctual self-protection, right? Like
Which
it
is
has
crucial
to.
as well, you know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
something to be appreciated, but
I also am like, okay, so you're talking about people pleasing. Aren't so many of us so much people pleasers? Is that something that you struggled with a lot too?
yeah, I think so. And I felt like some people, when I put out this project, I felt like people around me in my life got to see a different side of myself, because I come across as very like extroverted and confident in some ways, but in a way that is the people pleasing we're talking about. You know what I mean? Like putting on this like facade of like, oh, everything's okay. I can handle anything at any point. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
I'm very like analytical and I like to like sit with my thoughts, and if there's a conflict, I'm like usually the person to be like, take a step back, let me think about it, and how we're gonna solve it, instead of getting trapped into like any egos or any conflict in that way. I really avoid conflict, and a lot of these things play into being a people pleaser, because I don't think of it as a good thing in it. I think there's definitely a lot there to work on, but
Mm.
it always comes from a good place. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
always comes from like either protecting yourself, either making other people feel comfortable. And there's a lot to be said about that, but also learning to keep boundaries and keep yourself protected, you know?
And that's the crucial balance, right? Like where do you put kind of your needs and everything aside? And when do you draw that line? Like this is something that actually is totally acceptable for me to deal with, putting that aside, or when is this like the hard line? And I think there's so many of us stop having a hard line, right? Well, it's okay this once and it's okay again.
Yeah.
And that's when like all of you kind of depletes.
Hmm. And I do think like there's a lot of that, a lot of like little by little that like boundary chips away. But there's also a lot of, you know, we do live in a society where there's a lot of systematic issues, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And arguably the way that we live our lives might become a problem if it's not like, you know, everything's going so fast all the time, you know, like we all have to be productive all the time, we need to work all the time. and that all those things are things to reflect on for sure, but also reflecting on what does that teach us about ourselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what can we value when like we're doing all of this, we're going above and beyond for some money that we need, right? And that like teaches us like, oh, that's more important than my well-being. That's a simple example, but like that
Mm.
can be extrapolated to like a lot of things, I feel. And I think, yeah, I think it's about that. It's about reflecting also on the things that you don't really think about as like having to do with your self-esteem and your well. Yeah.
Mm. Have you, like, in the past had, or even now, had trouble with self-esteem and, self-acceptance and stuff?
Yes, for sure. So
I want your
well,
backstory too. I don't even have your
yeah, I
backstory.
feel like it's a perfect time to get into that. I've had to encounter that in my life so many times. I am a queer kid from South America, Venezuela. Grew up there, then later on moved to Portugal. I've been the new kid in a lot of places, and then I've also been the weird kid everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yay.
Um, and the queer kid. I've encountered that like challenge. Um, I've seen that those situations have challenged my self esteem. You know what I mean? And so it's a constant like effort to keep valuing yourself, and the best way to do that, I find, is getting to know yourself better. You know what I mean? The more you get to know yourself, the easy it is to fall in love with yourself, really.
Mm.
I feel like people need to start thinking about themselves like they think of romantic love towards another person. You know what I mean? You're always looking
Yeah.
to seeing their the good things about them, but also the bad things about them that we romanticize and we like see as perfect, but when we don't give ourselves that grace. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah.
But it is an everyday thing.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, I know I've always been the weird kid, no matter where I went, and I still often feel like the weird kid. But what I have noticed, and I mean, yeah, I struggled a lot with bullying and all sorts of fun things growing up. The thing I think about now is sometimes my own little videos will like come up in reels or something on Instagram, and I see myself and I'm like, oh, actually, I like you. You're sweet. I like you. And I don't know that even a few years ago I could have done that.
For sure. Self-esteem is not one thing that you can like measure. It's a constant thing that you have to like keep on building, right? And I think the best way to do that as well is like being vulnerable. You were just mentioning there like the videos that show up of yourself, and I've seen your videos. A lot of them talk about like identity and who you are, and like all these things are very personal, and like for the you're being very vulnerable sharing them on the online and with everyone that like listens to it. And I think that's like a beautiful, perfect exercise on self-esteem, because that's like a tiny little window. I think there's a spark that like happens every time we're vulnerable. And like if someone else can catch that spark, it's like the most beautiful moment in the world, because that's like what community is, what love is, what friendship is. Writing in a journal, making these videos, all that stuff, that's like making you be vulnerable, and noticing that within yourself is that constant exercise that you could be practicing with yourself. You know what I mean?
That's so true. I don't know. I never even really thought about it like that. But I guess how I often think about it is just, even if like 1,000 people think I'm like really lame, if one person thinks that it's been helpful or, positive
Sure.
impact, then it's like, then it's worth it.
I think of the coolest people I can think of, and I've met at least one person in my life that didn't like them or hated them even. You know what I mean? Like, my idols, you know what I mean? Tina Turner, Nina Simone, who's like one of my favorites of all time. Like, she's got a couple hits, but she's not very well liked even nowadays. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like she's like huge, but like the people that don't like her really don't like her. You know what I mean? So I think there's something to be said about that as well. And then also doing things just for the sake of like they're making you happy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know, I think about that too. Even if you are, say, generally disliked, but obviously those people are still very liked too. You are being true to yourself. And I think that is kind of what makes you the coolest, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're creating, as long as you're creating a reaction in someone, you can never be not cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
it's almost like any press, no press is bad press.
Exactly. Like, I don't know. I've had gigs where I've like played to one person that was like my friend, like front row. You know what I mean? No one else was like paying attention, and having played to a like I played this gig last year, which was like the Trans Pride event in Hastings.
Right.
What was I doing in Hastings? Like, it was beautiful. I loved it. Like, I was playing to my community. Like, it was just a bit random at the time, but I fell in love with the place. I'm actually like planning to go back this summer.
Oh, cool.
But you know, I've had those two different experiences. And like, first of all, the music, it's always gonna help you go through all of that. You know what I mean? Like, I remember you know, these gigs where like no one's paying attention, or like stuff like that I've done. Like, it's never easy, but I always find that by the end of the set, I'm healed. You know what I mean? Somehow I worked through like all the stages of grief while I was on stage. You know what I mean? Like, every song was like working a different emotion, and like also just realizing it that you're doing it for the love of it. It's like, whether it's one person, whether it's like 1,000, like, you know. And I think that's like the most like valuable thing you can get from that experience as well. And thinking of like, if you get a reaction at all, it's good, because it means people are engaging with what you're saying, with who you are, even if it's just like when it's not welcomed feedback and stuff like that. I guess just giving yourself grace over the fact that like you've been vulnerable, you're putting out a message in some way that this person picked up on and sparked a reaction in them, which I think is great. I felt like the opposite would be hard to deal with.
Yeah. No, that's true. How do you like prep yourself for that? Because it's got to be tough too if you have a small crowd that you're going out to, when you're like, but I want to play to all these people.
Exactly. I feel like, well, I mean, the toughest ones are the ones that when I don't know, because like, of course, like I've played at bars, I've played at like restaurants, stuff like that, where like people are just doing their own thing, and they're like, maybe some of them are appreciating the music, maybe some not, but like it's not the point of being there.
Yeah.
I felt like the hardest gig I've done in terms of this of what we were talking about, which is like low, like not a lot of people are coming to see a show, has been like supporting slots, where like for the gig we did sell a lot of tickets, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm the first one on at 7 p.m. Everyone's upstairs having a drink, you know, because in London, like all the venues are like downstairs.
Of course, yes, exactly.
Everyone's upstairs having a drink, and maybe like they'll start coming down for like your second to last song or your last song or something like that.
You're like, where were you guys?
And I think those ones are always a bit of a shock. Like, it's only happened a handful of times, but like, the supporting slots are always, I find, the hardest for me. Just because it's a bit of a shock. Yeah. Like, what, you don't know how many people are going to be paying attention or out there even by the time you hit the stage. You know what I mean? Like, there's no one like calculating that for you, like telling you. Like, and then it's a bit of a shock, really. But like, ultimately, like, you just go do what you were, you know, hired to do.
Yeah.
um and then also like what you enjoy doing. I remember like last time it happened, I had created like this like really awesome mix like that. I wasn't playing with the band at the time, and I was like, if I'm not playing with the band, I'm gonna create the best like live mix that there can be, you know what I mean? And I was started the day before, I started like playing all the instruments on top of the like the arrangement, like changing the arrangement, like doing some DJ stuff, and adding some like instruments that they weren't live, but I was playing live, you know what I mean? Or like the same instruments throughout the show, so it would feel more cohesive. And the next day came, and there was two people in the audience like paying attention, and I was just excited that someone could like listen to what I made yesterday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, um,
Absolutely.
so I think just focusing on that and like the love that you have for what you do, like, and I'm definitely not doing this for either the money or like people liking it, because God knows that's the hard part.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah.
And I think like there's a lot of people that get really discouraged. And that's why I asked that question, right? Because there are lots of people that I find sometimes are playing to venues that are too big for them. For one, there's people that just the crowds just aren't what they expect. And you can see them being like really disheartened about it. And I think that's I think you've got the key unlocked there is really tapping into why you're there and the love of what you do. And it's not, why isn't this room packed? It's, fuck yeah, these people showed up for me and let's give them the best time ever.
Exactly. It's like me and you know what I mean? Like there's one person in the audience, there's one person on the stage. We're like looking at each other, and like I wanna connect with you through the music. That's when I say it doesn't really matter whether it's like, and you know, I'm not trying to pretend that it's not hard to go through emotionally, of course. Like in my case, it's more, I'm not so disappointed on like what the actual like gig is, or like, but more so like what it means. I always get very existential. I always like overthink stuff, and I'm like, what does this mean about my career? Like, are people not connecting with my music? Like, what can I do to, yeah, I'm always thinking in that very proactive way, but doesn't mean it's any less harmful, you know what I mean? Like, what can I do differently? What can I do differently? And sometimes like you don't have to do anything differently. You just have to like keep on working on yourself, and like that's and keep on making better music. And that's like what I tell myself, you know what I mean? Like,
it's funny because even like the other day on my heavy metal hippie music page, I put a post up, and it is about like, you're not the amount of streams that you have, you're not the amount of followers you have, and blah, 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 blah. Right. Because we get caught up on those like little metrics without looking at the big picture of everything else that we're doing. Right. And when you kind of like zoom out and you look at it and you go, holy shit, we're actually like, look at all these impacts I've made. Look at actually how far I've come.
exactly.
And sometimes, honestly, it could be something like as simple as you did nothing wrong, but there was a train strike, or the weather was bad or something, and people decided to say, fuck it, at the last minute. You know, It's like sometimes there's just anomalies like that happen, and that's okay too. And I think it's really smart to be proactive and thinking about, what can I change? What can I do better? But it's also just not beating yourself up about where you are in the process, that you're not selling out the O2 for 10 nights or whatever, right?
I mean, like, it's like what we were talking about, the self-esteem. I do find it's very connected, because like it's about not putting your value on what you're putting out there, or measuring your worthiness of blank, you know, insert your answer on what people think of it, if people react to it or not, you know what I mean? Like, and it's a constant exercise. I feel like that's why like I always highlight the importance of like vulnerability, because it's a constant exercise that you keep on practicing, and that's ultimately going to lead you to better self-esteem, you know what I mean? Because you're putting yourself out there, putting yourself out there, putting yourself out there. And at one point you're gonna be like, oh, I've shown all sides of myself to everyone. You know what I mean? And nothing's happened. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there shouldn't be any fear. And with these type of things, it allows you to see it clearly as well. If you have a project that's not really working, it allows you to see a bit clearly why it might not be working. You know what I mean? Like like what you were mentioning, like if it's an event, like why was it raining? Like, you know what I mean? Like, did people not want to come out that night just because of that? Or like,
Yeah.
there's other factors that you might not be considering other than like, I'm terrible and like my music
Yeah.
shit and like all this stuff, you know
And
what I
that's
mean?
like, that's the easy way to go, right? It's, I'm awful. But the fact is, like,
Exactly.
you see those things, oh, my video only got 100 views or whatever, but it's like, what 100 views, what 100 people actually looking at you looks like. It's about that kind of perspective shift too, right? 100 views doesn't sound like much, but if it's contextualized that way, that somebody sat down for you for an hour, 100 people, that's crazy.
A thought that I had the other day that like really made me like reframe it as well was like, I was at this like record shop in Notting Hill, like just seeing like a secondhand shop, you know what I mean? And
Mm,
I was there for hours just looking through like what they had and stuff. And I never really like to get the like the big albums. I do, of course, if I'm really into it. But like, I like to find stuff that like nobody wants. Like I went through the comedy section from like
mm,
back in the day and like got John Rivers, and there was other ones that like were discounted to like 50p because nobody wanted them brought them home. And I sat down for an hour listening to these like weird American lady talking about like like a kind of comedy that was done in like the 60s.
yeah.
And I loved that. Like I absolutely had the best time. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if we thought about music these days like people thought about it back in the day? You know what I mean? If you got an album, you were sitting down, you were listening to it. And I'm sure there's a couple people out there, hopefully more than a couple people out there, but like a handful of people out there that have sat down and listened to all my songs, um, and had the experience that they were supposed to have. You know what I mean? Either connected or not connected with it. I don't really
Yeah.
mind. But
Yeah.
like how wonderful that is. You know what I mean? Like something I'm just like out here proud of like what I'm making, and
Hmm.
like, and if people like that, that's like the best thing in the world. But whether they like it or not is not really none of my business.
No, exactly. And I think, I don't know, I think when you put your passion into it and everything that you're doing, then it comes through and people like just get excited about it at the same time. And I love that so much because I think the world wants to be excited
For
and
sure.
they want to be connected in like with real stuff and those raw feelings, and you're doing it.
Yeah. There's a sensory overload going on. You know what I mean? I don't mean it to sound blamey on like anyone, but like
Mm.
we don't take the time to not do anything. And like I can say that because I am that person. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm out here like, okay, I'm so passionate about music. I also need another job. You know what I mean? Like I also need a day job. I also need a side quest. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
also need to go see my friends. I also need a successful love life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of this at the same time where it's just like, where is the time left for yourself? You know what I mean? Like this is all new things for us that we don't know how to deal with yet. And you know what I mean? Learning how to deal with, probably not a great thing either, because like this is all happened in the last like, I don't know, couple hundred years. Where before we used to just like be in the field. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Think about what we're gonna have for dinner.
Mm.
And like and in that time, like our bodies and our minds have not been able to catch up with like
No.
the amount of stuff that we're doing. So I think we have to do that intentionally, and I felt like that's something I've been trying to work on. And I think it's just fundamental to just like give yourself time and space and like like, yeah, I'm just gonna sit in my bed, like, and not have any music on, not have any like anything on. I'm just gonna sit here and think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and just like for restoring your body and your mental health and everything, like just take that step back and unplug and just like be,
Yes, for sure.
because it's not sustainable to have that like 16-hour days.
And it's rarely gonna happen naturally. I felt like the only times that's happened to me, I remember one time I was really tired from work and I was supposed to like go back home, get ready and then go do a gig. It was like at a pub or something. And it was a summer day. Everything was really hot. In Central, it was terrible. The tube wasn't working. And I felt like that was the universe like forcing me to just stay in Hyde Park and read my book. I couldn't use my phone because it was running out of battery. I couldn't get out of Central because the tube wasn't working, and the bus was going to take forever because when the tube's not working, like the traffic's insane.
Have fun on the bus.
Exactly. So I was just forced to stay in Central in Hyde Park. Like, I didn't want to go to a cafe or anything. First of all, I didn't want to spend money, and then also they're all too full. Like, I felt like there's not a lot of vibey place around Oxford Street. And I was just forced by the universe to like sit in the park and read. You know what I mean? And I had the best day after that. And before, I was frustrated, I was tired, and I was gonna come home and I was gonna do a million things and then leave. You know what I mean? Sometimes life like forces you to slow down, but I think it's important to do it to yourself as well. Like, you need to do it consciously.
Yeah, you absolutely do. It's truly a conscious effort. It's not like time just opens up and then you do it, right? When time opens up, we generally fill it with other things that we need to do.
It's never a priority, like taking care of yourself, because we're not taught that, I think.
No. You've got responsibilities. Do you have any shows coming up over the next few months?
So right now, there's a couple coming up that are like to be announced. There's nothing announced yet. So I would just say like keep an eye on my social media, Marlowe.mp3, because I'm gonna be announcing some stuff soon. This summer is gonna be packed and it's gonna be fun and exciting. But that's all I can say right now. And right now I'm just focused on like the single coming out.
And that's April 1st, right?
April 1st, yes.
So I think by the time this comes out, it's going to have just come out.
Oh, amazing.
And so now you got to go out and listen to the new single. We're going to link it in the description too.
And I do feel like it ties a lot into like that, like what we were talking about, like self-esteem and sensory overload and stuff, because this is what I talk about in my music. You know what I mean? Like Psychopath is a song about a situation I had with a guy where like I really liked him, but I liked him too much. It was like sensory overload. So I couldn't get myself to act like myself. You know what I mean? I was overthinking it. I was doing all the wrong things. And acting like a psychopath. But like not like it wasn't my intention. It was just like me, all these things we're talking about, being a people pleaser, being like trying to be open and genuine, but then sometimes it's too much, it's not enough, it's hard to control, like, and this is what the song is about. I feel like it ties into our conversation really well.
You said it, but tell everybody again, where's the best place that they can find you online?
Oh yeah, so all my social media handles are marlowe.mp3, like a file, and that's Marlowe with W-E at the end, like the writer, and yeah, just Marlowe on the streaming platforms.
Perfect. And I'm gonna link it all in our show notes. I have had so much fun chatting with you today, and I'm really excited for all the things that you're putting out. I can't wait to come to one of your shows. It has to happen.
We need to make it happen soon.
Yes, we're gonna. And thank you so much again for being here today, Marlowe. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for having me. I had so much fun talking about it.
We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Healthy Mental Hippie podcast. For more ways to connect, go to www.healthymentalhippie.com.